Everybody, thank you once again. It is the Tamara Collective, where dreams have no filter. Please get coffee, water, tea, smoothie, whatever you want to drink at the moment. This may be a lengthier video, so just get comfortable. We are going to keep talking about our transformational process. You may also hear this referred to as challenging situation, a challenging situation. You may hear this referred to as the dark. Our senses call it the dark. But what is the dark? First, the dark is not bad. But what is the dark as it relates to how we experience life, the challenges that show up in our life? What is the dark? The dark is rebirth. The dark is transformation. The dark is the birth of your desires, the birth of your dreams, the birth of your genius, the birth of your magic. The dark means a shift in your identity, a shift in your experience as you experience life on this 3D plane. And it is time for you to accept the shift. Don't run from the dark. So let's talk about a few things. So why is the dark uncomfortable? Well, often, many times, it is ingrained in us. It is programmed in us to want to automatically try to hurry and fix a circumstance. Hurry and get out of a situation. We're constantly looking for the next big action to take. We think we have to create this long, large, huge list of to-dos to fix and control how we're going to transition out of this transformational period. We take on the assumption that if we don't hurry and make some sort of big move, then we are going to miss out on something great. When in fact, the transformational process that you may be experiencing right now, the dark that you may be experiencing right now is the something great. So we have to understand that, sure, we can, when we come into a situation, when we come into a dark moment, when we come into this transformational process, this transformational fire, sure, we can grind, we can work hard, we can create a list of to-dos with 3,029 items on there, and we could very well, in fact, lose sleep, lose time with our family, lose time with our friends, lose time from doing the things that we love to try all these things to force something to happen, to force a change. Now, because of laws, I hate that word, but because of the way the laws of the universe work, sure, we could get, after all of our work that we put in, after all of the hard work that we put in, sure, we could get some type of result. But it's going to be a mutation of what is actually aligned for our soul. So what you have to understand is, through this process, Source, Spirit, wants to reflect through us. And in order for that to happen, we have to shed away things that no longer are going to serve us in this elevated identity that we have decided to embrace. This is what happens in the dark. That old programming gets sloughed. Is that a word? Sloughed away. Okay? So, why do we need the dark? And notice, when I say dark, when I say transformational fire, when I say transformational process, has nothing to do with suffering. That's suffering, that's a completely different thing. Just because you are going through a challenging moment does not mean that you have to suffer or suffer through it or suffer after it. Suffering is not required. All right. So back to my question. Why do we need the dark? That rebirth process, the transformational process, it is so valuable because it gives us the opportunity to examine our desires, to really examine, are those desires coming from our soul, or are they coming from programming? Are they coming from outside influences telling us what we should want? We get to surrender to asking ourselves those questions. Also, another reason why we need the dark, because we get to examine if there has been a shock to our nervous system. We get to take the time to examine those aftershocks that show us what limiting beliefs or lower vibrations that have found themselves lodged in our bodies. Over time, we get to cleanse. We get to cleanse. How does this relate to taking action? So here's another thing that can happen. We can be frustrated because we've made a decision to surrender to inspired action that our elevated spirit, our elevated guides will give to us. But when we are in the dark, we put a label on the way that our ego thinks that action should look like. We expect for the action to be grandiose. Often, the action that comes forth says, okay, well, now is the time to focus on what feels good. Now is the time to focus on you. Now is the time to ask yourself, well, during this time, during this darkness, during this void, during this transformation, during this rebirth, how can I surround myself with ease, sensuality, luxury? Sensuality, and this is a side note, this is not what this video is about, but this is a side note. Sensuality, we often equate that to things that are sexual. They can be, but that's only a part of it. Sensuality means being in comfort, being soothed, all right? So in what ways can you elevate those feelings? In what ways can you elevate ease in your life? In what ways can you elevate luxury? In what ways can you elevate sensuality? It could be turning on a song. In what ways can you remind yourself of the wealth and the overflow of money that you want to experience, for example? So when we are thinking we have to take action, when we're inspired to take that type of action for self-care, it's not what our ego expects. And so that can cause frustration, or we allow it to cause frustration. But putting yourself in an environment that makes you feel energized, that sparks rejuvenation, you find yourself saying, okay, more of this, please. And let me get up because my light just went out. I was not expecting for that to happen. And no, I will not be editing this out of this video. We'll just keep going. It's okay. So we find ourselves saying, when we just allow for the action to not be this grandiose thing, but to actually be, well, how can I soothe myself and surround myself with luxury during this time, during this void, during this dark, during this transformation? That inspired action, it holds the key to your rebirth and to your emergence in quantum fashion. That type of inspired action, to surround yourself with the luxury, to take care of yourself, that inspired move will be in such a way that the time you felt like you were in this dark space or transformational fire will seem like seconds. Okay? So I hope that made sense. Please, if you have any questions for me about this topic, leave it in the comments for me. All right? Let's talk about it. Until next time, cheers.